Hi everyone, thank you very much for stopping by and returning to the old world for that most unusual of beasts these days, a midweek video. Why? Well, the forces of Bretonnia have a new character model for us to look at, so step forward, Sir Cecil Gaston, the Worm Slayer. So this particular model, it's a character we've known about for quite a while. It appears in the Bretonnia Arcane Journal, and we get a little bit of fluff about him on the Warhammer community website, talking about his equipment, the Dragonhide cloak, for example, and how this character got his nom de guerre, the victory of a Norndak tyrant. But before we turn to the model itself, let's have a bit of a recap over some of its rules. Now, unusually for the Bretonnians, Sir Cecil fights on foot. It does say on the Warhammer community website that he's a good choice for leading units of Knights of the Realm on foot, and we will come back to this in just a second. Now, Sir Cecil, he comes in at a mighty 165 points, which, let's face it, that's a lot. And he is competing with some of the best characters out there when you're looking at the Bretonnian lists. The Exile Baron on Royal Pegasus, Duke on Royal Pegasus, stuff like that. These are very, very good fighty characters, which are going to be early names on the team sheet. So what do you get for your 165 points? Well, you get an infantry character, movement of 4, so far so human, an impressive weapon skill of 7, a ballistic skill of 3, not that that's really relevant to anything, strength and toughness of 4, 3 wounds, 5 initiative, 4 attacks, which is pretty good for a human. It's up there with like a Grand Master of the Empire, and leadership of 9. Armor save wise, he's got heavy armor and a shield, giving him a 4-up save. Now that 4-up save is a little bit more interesting than it sounds because of some of his equipment. He's got a Dragonhide cloak, which means that non-magical weapons, their AP is reduced by 2. So a lance, normally giving you the AP 2, crashes into him, it's going to give you AP nothing. So that 4-up suddenly starts looking an awful lot more sturdy. Obviously, if you're up against a lot of magical attacks, then not such a big bonus, but it does perhaps give him survivability against lances, great weapons, flails, and the like. Now, the Dragonhide cloak doesn't just do this, it also gives him immune to killing blow and multi-wound X, meaning at most an attack can do a single point of damage to him, making those 3 wounds a little bit harder to grind through. He also has a 3-up ward save against flaming attacks. When it comes to the offensive side of this character, he's got Sorrow End as his weapon, which is a rather chunky axe, giving him +1 to his strength and AP -1. Unsurprisingly for a magical weapon, it is magical attacks, it has the Monster Slayer rule, and also the multi-wound 2 rule. So every time you do some damage with this guy, so effectively he's strength 5 with no other upgrades from spells or the like, and AP -1, doing 2 wounds for everything that gets through. So he will get through characters, but overall, given his lack of mobility, I think your opponent is likely to be able to pick and choose to a far greater extent what kind of unit he's fighting, so that might not come into value as much as you might think. Now, if Sir Cecil kills a monstrous infantry, cavalry, creature or behemoth model, then he goes on to cause terror for the rest of the game. So obviously there's some factions where this is going to be quite easy for him to get involved in, Ogre Kingdoms for example, and there's quite a few options here for taking out a model which will then allow you to have a terror causer roaming the battlefield, albeit at normal infantry speed. And I think having that terror causer is something that's potentially quite useful. But again, it's that lack of mobility, certainly compared to the rest of your forces, which does mean, I think, your opponents likely for anything reasonably quick. So a lot of ogres, obviously more than movement 4. Monstrous Cav will obviously be quicker than him. Your opponent will be able to pick and choose to an extent when he gets into a fight and what he gets into a fight with. So probably try and avoid him with monsters, to be honest. As for his remaining rules, he has the Exile's Vow. Gives him Stubborn and Veteran, and he doesn't panic when a levy or peasant unit is destroyed within 6 inches. Finally, we're looking at Rally Cry, effectively a free rally attempt for 1 unit at the start of a turn. I think Rally Cry is potentially quite useful. Playing Empire, I've often got characters on the table with that. Actually, I've never had to use it or benefit from 2 cracks of the roll of the dice. So maybe it's a little bit situational. However, I would say if you are playing an option where you're using lots of foot knights, this guy seems quite fun and does give those foot knights that little bit more reliability, shall we say. It gives them a character that can sit in their ranks, the ability to rally cry, leadership. Here's leadership of 9 if he's in a unit as well, helping them out there. Perhaps so if you're going for that hammer and anvil approach, using your knights on foot as your anvil, he's going to give you a little bit of value. Now, at the start of the video, I did say about how he is competing with some very variable, powerful characters. And I think there's a reason why we simply don't see him in the successful Bretonnian army lists. Certainly when we're looking at tournament reports. 165 points is probably not delivering enough value for this particular model. However, that being said, if you're looking for a fun game, something that's going to do something a bit different, it definitely gives you that option. So yeah, absolutely. I think that is a very good thing about this figure. It gives you an option to do something a little bit different. Finally, let's turn to the model itself. And I have seen some criticism online about the fact that you can't really see any chainmail on this guy, and it's all covered up by his tabard and cloak. I normally criticise a lot of the newer models by looking at the ridiculous helmets, the very big weapons, shields, etc. This character obviously has the same issue with the helmet. I'm not going to dwell on that. For some reason, I kind of like it on this figure. Now, whether it's the paint job that they've given it for the purposes of showing off the figure, I don't know. But I do actually quite like this model. It does look quite interesting. I love the facial expression on the figure. I think that's great. And whilst there's a lot going on, it doesn't look like the model's too busy. So it seems like actually you could do a reasonably interesting paint job with this figure without having to be the world's greatest painter, which is definitely a tick in the box, I think, for looking to get hold of it. What we don't know at this stage is what material success will be made of. My guess is it's going to be Forge World resin, and it's going to obviously come at the sort of usual price for a single character. So there we have it, the latest news when it comes to the Old World, and Sir Cecil Gaston is coming relatively soon. Date, however, to be confirmed. Do let me know what you think of Cecil. Is it a model you want to get? Is it a way of getting him into your armies that you've come across? Let me know all of this down in the comments below. All it remains for me to say is thank you very much for listening. I am returned to the old world. Have a great day.